This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Fire Commission meeting, special meeting for Tuesday, November 19th to order. I'd like everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes of the Board of Fire Commission meeting, the regular meeting held on October 15, 2024. Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The Chief's report.
Good evening, all. I just want to point out that we have Commissioner Brown by Zoom this evening, so she's listening in and can speak up, and we'll try to notice her when she does so if she has any questions. So the Chief's report in terms of calls, 2023 at this time we were at 4,240 incidents. This year we're at 4,209. Our last Board of Fire Commission meeting occurred on October 15th, and so the below numbers that I have on my report are going to reflect a period of time from October 15th through November 18th. So since that time, we provided ALS intercepts 18 different times. We had 23 incident responses to the highway, 133 incidents in which we were able to send just an ambulance, and there was no reason to send any fire apparatus. Again, this is that where it's a little tricky now, right? 115 occurrences, which account for 287 incidents in which there were overlapping incidents occurring. That total is 60% for this past month. So 60% of the time we had more than one incident occurring at the same time. Moving forward to the budget, giving you numbers to period 4 on both the expense and the revenue. So on the expense, we're at 34.5% expended. On the revenue, I have updated numbers. Fire fees were just beneath $78,000, and on the ALS billing, we're just beneath $14,000. A couple of staffing shortages that are impacting this current fiscal year. We've had one member out on sick leave since July 25th. I do not have an expected date of return, so that's coming up on almost the half of the calendar year, all of this fiscal year practically so far, that we've been dealing with that absence and having to cover it with overtime. One member has been out since September 8th and only just returned a couple of days ago, so that was a 2-month absence. I have another member who went out on November 6th on injury leave. I do not have an expected time of return. That may end up being a long absence as well. And I have an additional member who I'm trying to find out as of this week, may be going out on injury leave as well, and I don't have a time period for that. So in summary, we're contending right now with 3 different long-term injury or sick leaves, which is going to be impacting the budget significantly. Beyond that, that's all I have for the budget, and that concludes the Chief's report.
Any questions of the Chief regarding his report?
Just one. The 60% overlap, are there any calls that we were not able to respond to?
There were some. I ran some numbers, so it's a combination of a couple of incidents in which we were not able to respond, and then there were incidents in which we were not able to provide additional apparatus when it was called for based on a run card. So remember, our run cards are built based on national standards, and so there were a few occurrences where we were not able to provide, let's say, a blocking engine on the highway, or we weren't able to send additional engines to an outside fire, which could be a brush fire or a car fire. So those incidents did occur. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions of the Chief? Hearing none, we'll move on to correspondence. Chief, have you received any correspondence?
Other than the day-to-day correspondence, I haven't received any. I received a written note that was non-specific to any particular incident addressed to the firefighters, which was passed on to them over the last couple of weeks.
Any commissioners receive any correspondence?
I do not.
Whole business of the fire department.
A couple things for you. Two of the apparatus that we were waiting to arrive have again arrived. I think I reported that last month. They're both in service right now. A couple final things being done to them, but nonetheless, they're both in service. I just want to point out to the commission that both of these apparatus were ordered in October of 2021. So it was a 3-year period of time for us to receive them. It's about 18 months longer than it should have been. So on that, I just want to spend a few minutes of your time going over the apparatus. So this is going to give you an idea for the month of October and November where we are with our apparatus. Obviously, November's not complete yet. So again, you've seen these reports in the past. I just want to reacclimate yourself to them. So the green, the apparatus are listed along the left-hand side. The green means the apparatus was in service. The pink means that it was not in service. And so you can see, I'm looking at the month of October right now. You can see truck 2 was out of service the entire month of October. It was never in service. It's remained out for repairs. Engine 3 was out the entire month of October, and if you carry it over to November, truck 2 is still out of service, engine 3 is still out of service. These apparatus, as they age, they become harder and harder for us to secure parts for, and harder for us to stay on top of from a preventive maintenance standpoint.
Chief, what are the ages of those two apparatus?
So this is one of the things that we started to do. Is so you see along the left-hand side, rather than get fixated on what we call the apparatus, whether it's engine 6 or engine 3, that can change from year to year. We do reassign engines just to try to keep the fleet balanced. The number you see along the side there. So let's take for example engine 3. You see that it starts with an 04.
Yeah.
So that would be a 2004. And so on. And so the 01 means that there was only one ordered that year. So you only really see one occurrence where there's an 02, and that's because it's a 24. So that's the 2 that we just received. So that's why there's a 2401 and a 2402.
Okay.
And so we are consistently trying to balance the fleet to keep apparatus in service. And I just want to put your attention, even look at Rescue 2 was out of service for almost an entire month, and that is a 2013 rescue. And so while it may seem that we have a large number of apparatus, we truly in fact don't. We struggle to keep in service what we have. There's a few competing factors for that. One is the age, and the second is as much as our contracted vendor does all that they can to support our fleet and be timely about doing so, they're still a vendor. They're not our mechanic. They're not, our personnel that have a vested interest in making sure that the apparatus are in service as soon as possible. And so when you start looking at apparatus moving forward, we have this. I can provide these same charts going back quite some time now, and we can begin to really see the trends of prolonged absences, which lead to operational deficiencies in the department.
So on that list, there's one that's 00, so that's back to 2000.
That's 2000.
And it's interesting because that one
Yeah.
seems to be in service.
You can't always go by that, unfortunately. In that regard, it's no different than some cars. Some cars that are newer maybe have more problems. There's just not much we can do to control that. But I did want to bring that to your attention, and part of the reason why is because, as the commission knows, we have pursued the purchase of 2 additional apparatus that were ordered last December, and One is, at the time, we did that for two reasons. One, to secure the pricing, because the pricing is going up exorbitantly on these. I can provide a number for when we go to the budget workshop in January, but we probably saved close to 20% on the order. When you're talking $1.5 million, 20% is a big number. And so we placed that order to lock in the price and to get ahead of the delivery, because again, if you look at the fact that these engines took 3 years, we need to start thinking that far out in some cases. Now, in this case, one of the apparatus is due to arrive in September of 25, but we don't necessarily have any idea to know yet if that's actually a concrete delivery date. But when you look at how often our apparatus is out of service, we're still in need of pursuing additional apparatus.
So, in your proposal, as we're moving forward with this budget workshop, my expectation is that you will propose some additional apparatus?
Yep, so we'll get to that momentarily with the budget, but I just
Okay.
wanted to cover that for sure.
Okay. That's good, we'll talk about that budget.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions regarding the apparatus in service and out of service?
I just had a question on, the new engine seemed to be out for a couple of weeks, engine 2.
Yeah, and so that's partially because we order the equipment in bulk ahead of time to try to save on some of the pricing, and now it needs to be fabricated and installed. There's various different types of equipment you could install, so it's putting the brackets in place and the shelving in place to make it basically fit so that when you open the compartment, nothing's falling out on you. So it all has to be very customized so that it fits our equipment, and that can't really be done until it arrives.
Okay. Anything else there, Chief, on,
For old business, I have nothing further.
okay. New business?
For new business, a couple of things. So I have the budget prepared to share with you where my thoughts are right now on the budget. This is obviously in a draft form right now, but it gives you a pretty good idea as far as what I'm looking at for a budget presentation. Pat, give me 1 second. I will see. I cannot share my screen. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to work with me here. So what you're looking at here are the yellow are contractual lines, or lines that I can't control, nor are they numbers that I was provided by finance. You can see on the right where I estimated what I expect those numbers to be when the budget is finalized, but those are not numbers that my office typically provides. The numbers in red are what is going to be increased hypothetically at this point, and then there's only one number in green. That number would be decreased. And so you can see there's some pretty significant increases that we need to contend with. The top several lines are going to be, I think, the focus of a lot of people in terms of the contractual overtime, the overtime line itself, and then there's some lines there that are contractually influenced as well.
So all of this contractual, obviously this is what has been negotiated through the Board of Finance and Finance Office. So my expectation is that they'll have some explanation.
And they just print the budget. So the three that I've highlighted in yellow are contractually based. In many regards, the contractual replacement is a contractual impacted number, right? It's obviously impacted by the labor contract.
Yeah.
The EMT is a contract influenced number, and that's it. Everything else is operational increases.
Okay.
Moving forward on capital, this is what you would see printed in a budget in terms of the 5-year capital plan. So of course, between now and January, I'll take whatever questions that you may have. Feel free to call me direct, and I can provide further explanation. What we're looking at is I need to provide a finalized budget to the Office of the First Selectman by December 2nd. Our workshop is scheduled for Saturday, January 11th at 9:15 in the morning.
Quick question on capital first. Extrication equipment last year, we did not, everything that was asked for was not approved. Is there a plan to go back and ask for what wasn't approved?
We've been able to secure some of that equipment through other means, so that's why we bumped it back out again until next year.
Okay. And then, in terms of the operational budget, is there a plan in terms of staffing increases, or what's?
There is, and so that needs to be separate from anything that you see here. Unfortunately, it needs to be really in an email, the body of an email. And so at this point, I'm expecting a staff, an increase in staff, at least a request for an increase in staff. It's really going to come down to, I think, a few different factors. And so we need to look at the lack of volunteer response that's taking place right now. And so on that, we are consistently taking volunteer apparatus out of service on a daily basis. This is really hard to read, and I apologize. There's no way for me to, for our office to make this look any better than it is. But what you can see here, and just to kind of acclimate yourself to what this is I'm looking at the month of November. And so the month of November is a little better to start looking at because there's a bit of a learning curve that's gone along with this, with the volunteers. So what we've started to do, and we talked about this last month, and I've given the Board of Finance during my last budget workshop a heads up that there'll be some operational changes unless some staffing increases started to happen, is if we do not have volunteers available to respond in either West Ridge or Northeast, if there are no volunteers that put themselves available, we have an app that they can all use and share and see, including the command staff, then the apparatus come out of service. It makes absolutely no sense to be dispatching fire apparatus when we know there's personnel that aren't going to get the fire apparatus out the door. And so that's what I mean by a bit of a learning curve. We started to move forward with weekdays, which were identified by the volunteer leadership right away when we went live with this October 1st. The volunteer leadership right away said they are not available Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, which is why the entire month of October appears that way. What's happened is we've continued to press for any other periods of the week when their leadership knows that there's nobody available, and if that's the case, then the apparatus come out of service. And so when you look at the month of November, you'll see there's some periods on Saturdays and Sundays when the volunteers have indicated they have nobody able to respond to any incidents. And so what we're doing is we're continuing to take this model moving forward to really paint a picture of availability of apparatus. If you reflect back on what I started with in this meeting, which was the overlapping calls, how many calls we're responding to, and how much we do still rely on the volunteers as a means of providing a critical service to the town. If they're not available, then the calls are either super delayed in us responding to because it means that a career apparatus needs to clear up from something else that it's on, or they don't get answered. And so there's, again, the learning curve for this past month in November has been making sure there's some situational awareness to the fact that there needs to be a running roster of personnel available so that we know that the apparatus can stay in service. And so as we begin to move forward with that, that I think will begin to really help paint the picture of the need for additional staffing.
So just a quick question on this. See how truck 2, oh, that's out anyway. That's why that one's
That's why
not
it's
filled
gray.
in. Okay, got it.
Yep. It's all coming together now, right?
I was like, that one's not orange.
Yeah.
Till I said it out loud, and then I was like, oh, yeah.
So Chief, on the Saturdays, the Saturdays vary.
They do.
So that's varies depending on the availability of the personnel.
Yep.
Volunteer personnel.
Yep.
Okay.
So I anticipate a staffing increase. I'm going to have some conversation with the first selectman to see what he can get behind. I know there's an inclination to phase in staff similar to how Mono East was set up. Mono East was 2 firefighters a year for several years until we eventually brought all 4 shifts online. My concern with doing that with Northeast is that 2 firefighters a year would take too many years for us to get to the point where we have enough firefighters on shift. That's a commitment for potentially multiple administrations to have to make, and I don't know that that's really feasible or not. And so the number that I'd like to see us move forward with is more like 4 every year. And again, that allows us to ease in the tax burden. But we need to start looking at additional staffing. I've been advocating for that for several years.
You know, the question is going to come up whether or not there's any federal grants for firefighters and whether or not we would be eligible for that, which we're not certain we would be.
Correct.
Do you anticipate grants being available?
I do not know anything about a SAFER grant yet for this year. That would be speak to a SAFER grant, and what I would really caution is that we did that once already. I agreed to pull the firefighters back from the request so that the town would support the grant. Unfortunately, we did not receive the grant, and we didn't receive the firefighters either.
Right.
We need to be really careful if we're going to pursue a grant that the commitment for the town to continue to hire firefighters is still there, because last year we didn't hire any firefighters either.
Well, it's been 3 years since we've brought any new firefighters on board, correct?
So it's been 3 years, but it's been 2 years without any budget approvals at all.
Any questions?
No.
The only things I have as well for you under new business is, and because this came up last year, I just want to make sure that the commission is aware of this. Last year there was a lot of questions around staff, around plowing the stations and which line that was going to come out of. And so I just wanted to bring the commission up to speed as far as what the plan is in terms of that, because it received a lot of questions during the workshop and during some of the public meetings. So it looks like moving forward in this winter that we're in now, although it's November 19th, we haven't had any snow yet. We've been asked to cancel our contract with the vendor, which is what we are advocating for. If it was going to come out of the fire department budget, we didn't feel it was appropriate for the fire department to pay for a contracted vendor to plow the stations. If anything, it should come out of somewhere else in the town line, but not the fire department budget line. Because part of that is because it's so hard to anticipate, right? I showed you, and I showed during the workshop what some of the bills look like for sanding and plowing. So it looks like moving forward, the direction that the town would like to move forward with is going to be that Northeast Station and the Ridge Road Station are going to be plowed as the streets in the area are plowed.
I don't see how that makes any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
We're a fire department, and obviously, I mean, where I work, we have our contractor comes every 2 hours to clear the snow for persons to gain access to our building and the walkways. And it's mind-boggling that they're talking about when the plow comes by. How often does that happen?
Yeah, I understand. You know, you can see elsewhere in that email chain where I kind of laid out the expectations that the stations need to be treated as fire stations and
Yeah,
plowed more frequently so that we can have, I mean, the ambulances are staging here at the fire stations. We have volunteers who respond to the stations and need to be able to get into the station, get into the door, be able to respond, be able to pull back in. So we'll have to just keep an eye on it this winter and see how it transpires, but
I mean, they could become warming stations for residents, if there's power outages or whatever. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense that, you know, we're gonna plow when the plows come by. Obviously, northeast, we're talking about a state highway, so how frequently does the plow truck come by there?
yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, you can see here where I wrote, is DPW prepared to plow on the hour, every hour during a storm?
That would make a world of sense. And we haven't received the response to that?
The response is above.
That's it?
Yep.
I don't see how that's acceptable.
So that's what I have, only because that was brought up last year as well.
Look, I know it's a huge expense to make sure that a fire department building has access and has the ice and snow and salt, laid down in order for us to operate. But leaving it at this just doesn't make any sense to me. Look, my intention is to reach out to our first selectman regarding this. I think he needs to interact with the Public Works Department and make some modifications to this. This just is, in my mind, it's unacceptable. I don't know what's the feeling of the commission here.
No, I agree.
All right,
So is there any alternatives that, what happened last year?
Last year, the town was still paying for a private contractor. We have been paying for a private contractor for at least 8 years now. And it was coming out of central facilities, that cost. And so the intent last year was to shift that cost, if you remember, to the fire department line. And that's the argument I had was that the fire department shouldn't be responsible for basically what should be a public works function.
yeah, look, I could understand that, the parks don't get plowed that often during a storm. At the end of the storm, they clear things out. The PD, what happens how does the police department get plowed?
Through Public Works. So Public Works, according to this email, will take care of headquarters and Mono East, where there's career staff, but as the other two stations, as the streets in the area are done, those stations will be done. That's, if you read through the email, that's what it says.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
And as someone who lives up by Northeast, I would like the apparatus to be able to get out.
Yeah, really?
I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I mean,
Absolutely.
the people that live around Ridge Road, that, I'm sorry, you guys have to wait until the street is plowed, that doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, if there's a major emergency and the volunteers are able to turn out, they can't get the truck out
Yeah.
because
Right.
they're snowed in. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. All right, I'm gonna reach out to the first selectman on this. That's just unacceptable in my mind.
Pat?
Yes? Oh, one Pat.
Well, on Ridge Road, when the road is plowed, they can't get out because there'll be a little mountain that they have to get over. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's no question, Ridge Road, you have to go up that little hill to get in there. So that needs to
Yeah.
be sanded and plowed and sanded, no question about it. Again,
Well,
if there,
they'll throw the snow in the driveway, so it's gonna pile up even more.
from the road.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. All right, chief, anything else under new business?
No, nothing further.
Any other questions of the chief regarding new business?
Not new business, I just need to go back to old business because I forgot to ask one quick question. The Northeast building, in terms of the work that was done last month, you gave us a little update. Can you give us another little update?
Yeah, but it hasn't really been a whole lot more done
Nothing's
there
changed.
since the last time that we had met. The carpentry is beginning to finish up, the flooring's been done. The painting's been completed. Now I'm working with the electrician who's starting to get going there, and beginning to work with the plumber who I'm still waiting on a quote for. So
Okay.
kind of in between contractors right now. That's the problem, is you kind of have to get one to finish
Yeah.
up before it's ready for the next one to come in, and so we're right in that in-between period right now.
Okay.
And where do we stand financially, Chief? I know that, you know, Quinnipiac allocated that, or the 300,000 that they donated, Mike allocated it to the Northeast. Do you think we'll be within budget to accomplish that?
If that entire allocation is put aside for the fire department, then it will not be an issue.
Is there a question of that?
I don't know.
Okay, I was under the impression that was dedicated to Northeast. Another question to ask. Okay, thank you.
I did have a question. It's just a question about that brush fire behind Cinema Lake Pond. Do you have any information on what happened, how everyone did?
Yeah, so I know that we're always a month behind in reporting these things, right? But in this case, with some of the brush fires we had going on, I did want to talk about that tonight, because it's relevant as we talk now. So we've had a lot of brush fires. We had a pretty extensive one on Peters Rock that required firefighters to be there overnight. The same thing happened with that particular fire. That one was a little more concerning because, well, they both were, but that one potentially threatened a lot more homes than the Peters Rock fire was going to. As far as cause and origin, we're working with the police department on that, particularly now for the Sinaway Pond. There's a few things that are in the works. For Peters Rock, we're not able to identify a cause or an origin in that case. The problem that we run into in these fires is they get so big so fast because of how dry it is, and they are very, very labor intensive. For 2 different fires, for us to have to keep firefighters there overnight, pretty unusual for us. And part of that is because as the ground gets so hot and the leaves are so dry and the leaves are dropping, so, you know, we extinguish the fire, but the ground itself is still very, very hot. As leaves drop from the trees and they land on the ground, they start fire again. So we can put the fire out, and as the leaves continue to fall, they reignite. And so that's what we're finding happening in a lot of places. And so I was happy to work with town attorney and through the support of the First Selectman's office several weeks ago, put out the burn ban, and that stays in place until the state starts to inform us otherwise of the weather. So right now, there's several periods of time that we go back into a red flag warning, which is the worst of the worst, but even still, we're in very dry conditions at all times, even outside of red flag warning.
So the burn bans are in place for the town, or?
For the town. So the state put one out for all state parks and state areas, and then I work with the town attorney to put one out through the town as well.
So how do people in the town get informed of that?
So it's on the website, it was on the town Facebook, it was on the department Facebook.
I wonder if we can ask about, you know, we've got, you know, different signs that have been used across town, like, so people actually know about that, because you have to go to those places to know that they're actually in existence.
What signs are you speaking of?
Like there's that one in front of the center of town, close to town hall, that people can rent out.
Got it, yeah.
And there's, if there's nothing there, it wouldn't be a bad idea to ask if we can put something up. Sometimes they'll put a little, I think there's even some electrical sign that's been up that I've seen a couple of times in front of that sign also, informing people of different things. So if we can think about different places that we can put up some signs for people to see, because I think the chance that they're gonna, I know people are hearing about the brush fires, but if you're in your own little world, you know, working and taking care of kids and going to events, I don't know that people are gonna know. Even at Monowese, like the field, maybe there's something the rec department can put up. It's just a thought in front of the police department.
I see it on Channel 8 every day. They show a map of the state, all in red with flames. It looks like flames, so they're doing that. But, you know, the sandwich board on the green, I think there's something could be placed on that. You know, Chief, I don't know if we have
I'll see if there's
any
something
signage that we could.
We don't have any signage, that's the thing. But I'll see.
What about that robocall that we use sometimes for
Yeah,
snow delays or snow?
so the Everbridge, we're really advised to not use it for that purpose. I know it was done a few times,
Yeah.
and we are advised to not do it that way. we're expecting some rain the next 2 days,
Yeah.
so let's see what happens with that. I don't anticipate a lot to change, but the fire danger may end up resolving itself, at least for the foreseeable future.
Are you getting a lot of leaf fires?
No, we're getting a lot of people who are just, to the commissioner's point, still burning in fire pits and still burning unnecessarily. It's still happening. I mean, I think that there's a combination of awareness and then a combination of ignorance out there.
Yep, and just as it gets cold outside, and people are like, oh, it's a nice fall, it's fall weather, you've got your burn pit outside, and there are people who just don't know.
But it's interesting because there's a lot of people who are aware of it, because I want to say this morning we chased down 4 or 5 different 911 calls for a smell of smoke on the south end of town. And it looks like we're tracing it back to a fire in Great Barrington, Mass. So
I
that's,
smelled smoke this morning.
Yeah.
I was on my way to Wallingford,
yep,
and it was heavy
it
smell.
was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we chased down several neighborhoods and couldn't find anything. And then one of the local weather channels actually showed how it was coming down right into the New Haven area.
Interesting. Well, for those of you that are watching this, please be cautious. No fire pits, no open burning. Let's hope that we get some rain, and it's saves lives and property. And my thanks to those departments that provide mutual aid for us at Peters Rock and
Peters Rock, we had a number of mutual aid departments. Sinaway Pond, we had one mutual aid department, and it's worth bringing up to the commission as well. We did send a crew of volunteers to Berlin for the Hawthorne fire. We did have, I was up there for a couple of days, helping with some command function and some equipment. But then we did send 4 firefighters up there for a 12-hour period. And again, only because it's relative, I don't know, it did happen. We did send we sent 2 engines to New Haven over the last couple of weeks for a large fire in New Haven, and that was a structure fire.
Yeah, that was a pretty big fire down by the water. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks to those departments that provided mutual aid for us. We certainly appreciate their help. Good of the department, Chief.
Good of the department, I believe the commissioners have a couple of motions for probationary members.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mary Jane, please.
I make a motion to accept Trinity Silva and Bernardo Starts Xavier as probationary members of the West Ridge Company 3, effective immediately.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
2 other quick items. One is be on the lookout on Facebook. The 2 volunteer associations will be putting together their Santa delivering toys on fire engines. That is not something that the department gets directly involved with, but obviously we support it through any means possible. But that is directly run by the individual volunteer associations. And the second is that we did receive notification of a FEMA AFG grant, Assistance to Firefighters grant. We're looking through the application and the priorities now to determine if we feel that we can be competitive in putting in for a grant for equipment, in this case, equipment and training. And so by next month, I should be able to tell you what was decided upon.
And when you talk about training, Chief, the training tower working well, and
Training tower is well. The site's been a little off limits to us as of recent because of the garage that's going up, and the garage should be done, I think, by Thanksgiving.
good, good. Anything else for good of the department?
No.
Public comments? No one here. I'd like the commission to, before we move into executive session, to invite the deputy chief into executive session after we have a few moments of discussion. Can I have a motion to accept that?
Make a motion that we invite Deputy Chief into our executive session after we discuss.
All right, thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? So moved. I have a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
There is a second?
Second.
So moved. Very good. Thank you. Yeah, a little. Good evening. I'd like to reconvene the Tuesday, November 19, 2024 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. Is there any further business coming before this commission? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? This
Aye.
meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving to all.
Thanks, you.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.